Braxcast time once again. This is the 19th episode of this podcast, and this is the first week where I'm able to report on what's happening in the news cycle. And I've missed a good bit. We have the launch of the Goodyng pre-order, and along with that, the new website. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I'd like to show off these. So everybody who ordered the CGC signature series associated with the IRA campaign have been getting them, and that includes me. So this all of mine are 9.8. So we're going to go through these 6 books really quickly. We've got Yaira cover Yaira number 1 cover A by Cannon White, absolutely beautiful, signed by Jen and Sylvia Saska. Cover B is also, these are all 9.8. So but these and all the Iras are signed by Jen and Sylvia, and the Rippaverse signed by Eric July. But this is cover B. Looks fantastic. We've got cover C right here by Graham Nolan, and cover B was by Will Conrad. Here's the back. All the backs look the same, so there's no point in displaying each and every one of them. And then of the last of the Yaira number 1 covers, we've got cover D by Mark Evans. Absolutely love this airbrush style of his, and it's fantastic to have a 9.8 signed by Jen and Sylvia, CGC, and that plastic slab looks fantastic. Love that gold. So we've got the Rippaverse. This is the standard edition signed by Eric July, also a 9.8. And then last but certainly not least is the collector's edition of the Rippaverse. Both the covers for the Rippaverse were done by Cannon White. This is the collector's edition, which features salvage. It's signed by Eric July, and once again, it's a 9.8. I'm pretty sure all my signature series that I've gotten from the Rippaverse CGC has been 9.8. So I think they intentionally send those to me. But those are my 6 most recent additions to my collected Rippaverse books, so I figured I'd show those off. But we're going to get into Goodyng. So Goodyng the Polymyth pre-order has launched. It's going to start fulfilling July 27th, if I've got the dates correct, which is going to be very fun. So it launched on the 20th. So basically during the summer solstice, basically just missing spring. I'm still calling it good spring. It's still good spring to me. And also these books, when they pre-order, whether it's a campaign, which all the others have been, or a collection like this, which is the first one, they always come out in a very timely fashion once you give the money to pre-order them. So this is cover A by Cannon White. This was the revealed cover that we've known for a while. Still looks fantastic, but that's not really why you get excited for a launch of a book. You get to see all the other covers, and there's 4 covers in total. So this is cover B by Will Conrad, who also did the art for this book. And I should have printed out the interiors for this book that we got along with it, but I didn't. But because they do look fantastic. Will Conrad's a great artist. He did the art for the Pokemon cards. He's done some Rippaverse covers, including this one. He also did cover B for Yaira number 1. And this villain right here is one that Jen and Sylvia Saska have hyped up a lot. So I'm really excited to see how he comes into play during the story. This is supposed to be a true origin story, starting from his childhood and ending, I guess, somewhere around where he is in Item number 2, being this for a hire protector of Shadow Valley and some other surrounding areas of Forest Park. But that is cover B. Very nice to see. Next, we've got the C cover, and I believe this is foil and embossed. It's by Ron Nilsson Friere. If I'm saying that correctly, I'm probably butchering it. But this is a fantastic looking cover. Absolutely love it. So you've got, him in real action saving someone surrounded by fire. You got the drone. So it's a very nice cover. I absolutely love it. Can't wait to see it in person. But we've got the final cover for Goodyng. This is cover D by Mark Evans. This is going to be the mass print version. As basically all of Mark Evans' covers have been, because he did Alpha Core number 1, he did Yaira number 1, those cover Ds, and he's doing cover D for Goodyng, and this is the mass print one. That'll be in distribution in perpetuity, where the other ones are limited to a certain number of copies. But I do like this one. You've got Gooding in his, I guess I'd say, firefighter uniform. That's got his logo, Gooding Services, and then he's got the robot there helping him, and it's got a bit of an ominous look, but you know that it's definitely working for him, right? So I absolutely love these covers. I'm very excited to read this book, and a lot of people are as well. Over 5,000 copies sold, nearing in on $200,000 on just the 4 covers, a poster, and a shirt. So this isn't an extravagant 75-day pre-order campaign that was hyped up and had all this marketing, but there's like push behind it. It was just dropped with the website, and people are responding to it well. But we'll get into more of Gooding as we get closer to the launch. And we've got a lot of questions of the day, so I don't, which some of them do concern Gooding, but we'll definitely dive into the nuts and bolts, pun intended, of what drives Gooding as, of course, we get his book and we get closer to the release of Gooding the Polymath. But I mentioned a good bit ago that the Rippaverse is going to be at Fan Expo. I'm not going to be in Denver, which is where this Fan Expo is being held. But if you are, it's going to be from the 4th to the 7th, so 4th of July weekend. And this is the schedule. The Saskos will be there Thursday from 1 to 6 p.m. And then Friday's packed. Eric July in the morning, Mike Barron in the early afternoon, Saskos in the evening, and then Star Wars really in the late evening. And then Saturday with Saskos in the morning, Drunk Free PO in the afternoon, Eric July in the later afternoon, and then Mike Barron and Star Wars Fury in the evening. And then Sunday we'll have Mike Barron in the morning, Drunk VPO in the afternoon, and then Saska's heading into the evening. So if you're going to be at Denver Fan Expo, you want to meet any of these people, this is the schedule. They'll be at booth 654. I won't be there, but this is, of course, relating to the Rippaverse, and do want to keep you guys informed if that is something you can do, and if, of course, it's something you want to know about. But we are going to go into the questions of the day because I missed a bunch, and some of them I forgot to shrink to fit when I sent my printer, and I printed a lot of stuff this week, so I did not want to redo it. But the first question of the day we're diving into is, what does continuity mean to you? And of course, I've talked a lot about the Rippaverse appealing to me from the universe aspect of it, right? That is what I really enjoy about the Rippaverse, and what that means is continuity, that something happens and it just doesn't get wiped away. Now, I'm fine with going back to the past and adding things, but everything should make sense. Deaths should be permanent. If someone dies, then if they do come back, there needs to be some sort of like grandiose cost to resurrect somebody. Something like Game of Thrones, where Jon Snow comes back, but that has a lot of, I guess, consequences to it, and doesn't happen for just about anybody. You have to be like really notable to get resurrected, if in the Game of Thrones universe. But death should be permanent. Like, we have spoilers for Alpha Core #1, but you have Wilkins who dies. He shouldn't be coming back. So in the later issues of Alpha Core, Wilkins' death being mentioned, how he died, all that remaining consistent. So it's just establishing these events and following through on them, and then when you go and readdress them, you're only doing that in the context of what's been established in the previous books, right? So that's what continuity means to me. I guess the biggest thing is being character deaths being permanent. That's the biggest thing, and then just being like any sort of like apocalyptic or near apocalyptic events having these permanent ramifications, right? If like half of Flores Park blows up, right? You don't want like in the next issue for it to just not be a thing anymore and never mentioned again. You want that to have like long-lasting effects for the storyline of several books, because a lot of these books are going to be featuring Flores Park take place within that city state. So if something major happens to Flores Park, it should be affecting the storylines for all those books that where the characters are interacting in Flores Park. Should have that event be mentioned for a while, and the consequences should be permanent within the universe, right? So that's basically continuity for me. It's just the events being meaningful and the writers actually sticking to the universe, living with the consequences of that. But we're going to move on to the next question, a lot less serious. So, who would you rather be stuck in the woods with, a bear or Shadron? So this, man bear thing was going around. Of course, this is a really funny take on it. So would I choose to be in the woods with Shodron or a bear? Bear, hands down, because if I'm alone with Shodron, that physical difference is going to be a lot more severe against me surviving if it's me versus Shodron rather than me versus a bear. And Shodron's most likely going to have murderous intent for me, whereas a bear is just going to be viewing me as like probably a snack, and it's going to be a lot easier to run away from the bear or get out of its way adequately enough where the bear just gives up and looks for food for somewhere else. That's really the way I view it. So definitely a bear for sure. Very easy one for that. Very easy question to answer. We've got the next question right here. What are your plot theories for Gooding the polymath or polymath? I think Gooding has a past in special operations, right? He was a spec ops soldier. He was experimented on at some point during his career, left the military service, and he founds Gooding Services. That's my biggest plot theory, right? Because you see a lot of stuff like gas and dead bodies surrounding him, and then of course the villain being someone that wants to take him back to being experimented on, or it could be cartels or criminals or all those sorts of things. But I think Gooding having a special ops military background would make a lot of sense. It would explain why he's able to engineer so well. Also explain his physical aptitude, because he's able to carry this gear and run around and save all these people in burning buildings and stuff like that, and also the bravery to be able to just like run into a building that's on fire, right? It takes some sort of resolve to have that, and if he has military experience, it could explain where he got that. So that's my biggest plot theory for Gooding the polymath, is that Gooding has a military background. So the next question of the day is, what previously introduced characters are you hoping to see in Gooding's book? And I don't really have an answer for this. I'm more excited to see the villain in Gooding the polymath, because that's been hyped up so much by the Saska sisters, that villain. So that's really the biggest thing for me. But I think maybe Cedric Gaucho being involved in Gooding's story would be a really interesting thing. Maybe Sergeant McDavies, because he does work in Forest Park in Shadow Valley, although I don't think McDavies would care about what's going on in Shadow Valley. Maybe he would. But there's like interesting stuff like that. I don't think someone like the Salvage would show up, although that would be interesting. If the Salvage had business with Gooding, whether that's like explicit, like direct business, like he's involved in somebody he's hunting down, or he uses, Gooding as a service to commission gadgets that that the Salvage uses to help him with his investigations. That would be a cool thing. But do I think that's going to happen? No. But definitely how Gooding met Isom, now I'm thinking about it, would honestly be a really interesting thing as well. But before we get into the last question of the day, there was another one I didn't print out, is what Rippaverse character would you most like to have a chat with? And I would say Dokumon for sure, and then the second being Bloodroof. And the reason I say that is because Dokumon and Bloodroof are the only two characters in the Rippaverse that can travel through all of the realms. So there are multiple realms in the Rippaverse, and of course we're focusing on the one that contains Earth, but there's different ones. Bloodroof can travel between realms, and she's the only one, and Dokumon knows that Bloodroof is the youngest and only daughter of the family. So I'm guessing this implies that she has an ability that her family doesn't, which is really interesting. So it'd be interesting to have a chat with her on that basis and like pick her brain about that. But Dokumon, of course, having traveled through all the realms and kept archives and all these interesting people, would be a really interesting character to pick the brain of. Of course, like where he's from, like what's under the hood, all of those sorts of things. So I definitely would say Dokumon is that clear winner of like the Rippaverse character I would most like to have a chat with. But we're going into the last question of the day. What are you hoping for after Gooding updates the site? Of course, this question of the day was posited before the site update came about. Now that the site has been updated, I'm going to go and dive into it. I wanted to show it off, and I'm going to talk about what's currently there, what I like about what's currently there, and what I think they could do in the future to improve it, because I think it's a great foundation, but it's definitely a foundation. So we're going to transfer to that. We're going to transfer to a desktop view with the browser open right about now. Hello, Joker's here. I've got the new website opened up, so we're going to go through all of it, or give a good overview of basically this relaunch website. Take a good look at it, give you my thoughts on it, and I'll also give you what I think can be added to make this a more even better than what it already is. So this is the front page. This is just Rippaverse.com, and it's pretty decent. I would say it looks pretty slick, looks pretty clean. Of course, you've got this typical, a bunch of stuff to go through. The Goodyng services pre-order, the new store, which we'll go through. Florist Park Faces, which is basically just going to take you to all the character profiles. We'll look at that character page later. Then, of course, the for the Rippaverse comics, and it just got this one background art, which looks good, but it should be like something for Goodyng here, something for the store here, something for the membership here. It just makes it look a little bit repetitive. And then of course you've got some more marketing stuff. The UI for buying things is pretty decent. I do think instead of it going from like A to D, it's going from right to left. It should be left to right. This isn't manga, right? But that's the homepage tab. So we're going to go with the first collection here. So this is the Goodyng pre-order collection. It's a very simple one. Of course, we've got 6,200 books sold, $183,000 in total sales, with just a very bog standard. The shirt, the poster, and the 4 covers is really, that's all being included. This is a 1 month pre-order campaign pre-order window, so not the 75-day pre-order campaign that had a lot more oomph in terms of the I guess with Isom that was being the launch of the Rippaverse, and then Alpha Core and Yaira definitely had a lot more of a presence than Goodyng, I would say, or maybe a little bit more, or I would say maybe about the same for Alpha Core and Goodyng in terms of just how much the fans responded to them. But of course, Yaira, people really loved the character of Yaira. But we've got Goodyng here, of course. His book is on the pre-order stage of this. Is going to be available about July 27th. That's when it will start fulfilling. So it's going to be very exciting. But again, this is a pretty clean, slick page. You got a place to play the trailers. You've got these interiors that I didn't print out on my like recording setup for Braxcast, and all the other videos I've done on Velvet Room Publishing with that overhead perspective. But yeah, these are really nice interiors. Will Conrad's a great artist. This is being covered by Jay Brown, who's a fantastic colorist. Did the color work for Yaira #1 as well. So, and he seems like he's going to be doing a lot of coloring for the Rippaverse, and I'm very happy about that. But that's the collection page. We're going right into the store page. Of course, you've got the Unleash the Hero Goodyng, really advertising that Goodyng is available to pre-order. That's the latest thing to buy, right? But you've got a whole bunch of stuff to buy here. Of course, Goodyng's there, but the statue, Yaira #1, Alpha Core, Isom 1, and then you can see basically all this stuff here. You've got the pages to flip through stuff here, and then you've got this basic like down information. Of course, you can view the campaigns as well. So this campaign information is still available to us. Of course, it's formatted differently than it was when the site, when Isom 1 launched. I'm going for the Isom 1 campaign right now if you're just listening, but it's definitely much more slicker and formatted differently, but all that information is still there. If you're curious about the campaign, still what numbers they did and everything, that's still going to be there. That's still very well established, which is nice. And the store's definitely gotten a bit of a refresh. It's still pretty basic. There isn't too much stuff to buy, and since someone like me, I've bought basically everything the Rippaverse has except for some shirts and posters, which I don't really care for merch too much. I've gotten a lot of merch because I got these I Want It All packs, and I like the quality of it, so it's all good. But I'm not like super passionate about owning merchandise as other people are. But we're going to head right into the comic section. So with this website launch, they've definitely put in the foundation for them to be feel more like a comic book universe rather than just a place where they're publishing books that tie into each other. And one of the things that really makes this, that thing that I just said, is this, comic section, right? You have all these comics that the Rippaverse has published. Of course, it's a pretty small list so far, but it's going to get bigger as the release schedule picks up. Goodyng is the start of the release schedule picking up, and them just, getting to that point where they're pumping out a book every month, which is really where the Rippaverse needs to get before they do anything like big in terms of adaptations. Be comfortably publishing a book once every month, so that way the comic fans, which is what this company is for, it's a comic book company for comic book readers, so that really needs to be taken care of. A book a month, I think, is going to make everybody happy who is really hardcore into the Rippaverse. Certainly would make me happy. And then you can think about doing big adaptations after that, but I definitely think that that's the biggest thing for them, just getting more comics out. So of course you got Isom. It's the only one that has 2 issues associated with it. You look at Alpha Core, and it'll have just Alpha Core number 1. You look at Yaira, it'll clicked on Isom. There we go. Yaira will just have Yaira number 1, and then of course Goodyng will just have the Goodyng book, Goodyng the Polymyth. So that's the comic section. Of course, you click on let's click on Isom number 2, just to show a book that's been out, and it'll show like when it was published, who colored it, who did the art, who wrote it, and then all of the different covers, and then basically a base overview, and then it's going to show you all the characters that appear in the book. And then of course if you click on any one of them, it'll take them to their character profiles. But we're going to go into that part of the website next. So we've got the character section where you can read about the characters and learn all about them. Of course, we've got Goodyng as the character spotlight because his book is it's the next one on the release schedule, so Goodyng is being hyped up. We are in good spring. As I keep saying that, I'm going to keep driving that into your head. And then you've got the rest of the characters organized by alphabetical order. Around about, it starts off in alphabetical order, right? But then you've got Yaira right there because she's going to do what she wants, ice cold. Right? All this are, I believe, it looks like it's done by Canon White, and these are all fantastic. Canon was sharing like the one for Ingrid, the one for Braxwell, or I said Brian Solari, and I think he shared Braxwell's as well. These are all fantastic pieces of art, and then of course, you click on any one of them, you'll see a character page. But we're going to go into Horseman's, right? Because Horseman's character page, his book is not out yet, but we get some information about the Horseman. And this information really confirms what I thought, is that I had this theory that Horseman was Sam Wilford, the ranch hand for Shadow Valley's, the ranch, for Silman Ranch in Shadow Valley, right? Which, works for Isom basically. But he is not Sam Wilford. He's Hector Lee Caparello. That's his alter ego. Was formerly part of the military, so he's got firearms and melee weapons, and makes him a skilled fighter as well. For his first appearance is the Horseman number 1. There might be a subtitle for it. They're just not ready to reveal it. I do think this is going to be a it's going to start off as just this self-contained graphic novel, and if people respond to it really well, then you can of course get a second book. But you got him pissing off a better class of hoods these days. Got a past as a soldier. He's a skilled tactical fighter with a knack for close quarters combat and a surprising talent for bowling. However, his transition into normal society is challenging due to his military past, and his tendency to underestimate enemies can cause problems. So I'm sure that's going to all come up in the Horseman. This is a fantastic piece of art. You've got that Rook logo on his chest right there, all red and prominent, so it's really nice to see him colored. It's really nice to just get this good piece of art as well, and it's also nice to know what his alter ego is, so that way we can confirm that my theory of him being Sam Wilford was completely off the mark. Of course, we get to very solidly speculate on what Sam's story is going forward, and then we're also going to be excited for the Horseman, see what Hector Lee gets into in that book for the Horseman. Of course, I do think, the fact that he was in the military, probably going to be involved in the Great War of Separation. I was talking earlier in this episode about Goodyng having a military past. Could he know Goodyng? Could he appear in Goodyng? Who knows? But it's really interesting to see this. And I think this is definitely part of what's going to make the Rippaverse really interesting, is to be able to go onto the character page and just read about these characters, right? And then also see like, oh, I like Horseman. You can buy the Horseman book. Of course, you can be reading about like Billy Bob Quinn. Be like, well, I like that character, interesting character. You read Alpha Core #1, and you get to see Billy Bob Quinn and Galvin, and you could read about Braxball and get Alpha Core, right? Or Isom #1 or Isom #2, even though barely appear. But Yaira #1 would be more relevant to the Alpha Core because they have a very prominent role in that book. But again, being able to read about the characters, know about them, and then know what comics they appear in, so you can learn even more about them, is definitely the interesting thing. It's going to be a very fun thing going forward. But that's really what I wanted to cover with the site. That's really all the new and interesting stuff with the site. Is definitely the character and the comic page. Everything else I would just describe as having gotten a good facelift. And that's all welcome and good. It's definitely been really solidly updated. This is a great foundation. And now I'm an Ultra Max, so I've got the highest tier for the membership. And one of the things they've mentioned is more interactivity and integration with the memberships and the site, and that definitely hasn't been launched yet. They focus on just getting the site up and running and making sure people can buy and pre-order stuff, which is what the state of the site is at next, and then they're going to launch the app and more interactive stuff. So if you click on Ultramac, it doesn't really do anything, but this is the membership portion. I post a daily poll on the Rippaverse members forum, what used to be the Eric D. July forum before they rebranded. And this is a really basic forum. They did update the UI from this like a good bit ago, so it does look it definitely does look better, but this is a really basic forum system. I definitely think this should be kept because this is members.ericgjuly.com, and you go here. So if you've got like rippaverse.com/characters, you should have rippaverse.com/forums and just have basically a forum that's separate from this, and this can just remain like the members corner or something like that. And then you could have a forum that's specifically for the Rippaverse itself that anybody can join, and then you can have the members being, they can have their own forum within that where they're talking about comics and they get early access to information. Because I think that, this is one of the biggest missed opportunities, is that there hasn't been as much interactivity on this forum as there has been. So I definitely think rebranding it, or not having like a forum that's very much even more centered around the Rippaverse, rather than just having like the general discussion and the gaming and the comics and the announcements where not much is posted, is definitely the better thing to do, and then have this exist in tandem for people who want to talk about gaming or comics that aren't the Rippaverse, and then just general discussion where you can talk about anything. So I can keep posting my poll on this and just like have that forum, then also have another one that's definitely more geared towards the Rippaverse and where the staff and the members can interact more, and then you can have free people getting into that, and they can also get into the book as well, because there's a community that's associated with it, even more so than just like being on like Twitter or the Gilded or the Discords or anything like that. So having like an official forum that's all about the Rippaverse, that's basically just rippaverse.com/forum, and then has basically pages to talk about specific series that are going on, speculation, all that stuff. And then you can also have like a section within that for fan content. So there's people who aren't me, who are making Rippaverse related content. They did talk about driving people to that content. And I think that would be a fantastic way to do it within a forum system that's more exclusive to the Rippaverse, and then you could just have this be the members corner. And so that way this can remain separate and be up there, and none of the posts, which the vast majority are mine, can stay intact, and then you can have a new bustling forum for the fans. But that's really me covering the Rippaverse website. There really isn't much else. I know if you want to go into like every single character, you can go to the website. The link will be in the description below. I believe Creative WM Personal, who's I think, who's, invested in the fandom probably about as much as I am. I did see him do some videos featuring the characters, so going through this. So if you want to go, someone going through every single character, I'm not going to be doing that. But I did show you the overview of those pages, and that's really what I wanted to get across, is that this is a fantastic foundation for the Rippaverse's online presence, and it's definitely going to really solidify them as this, big comic book universe company, rather than just this, fledgling, series of indie books. So that's really it. We're going to go back to the overhead view and wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Braxcast. This was the 19th one. We had a lot to cover, but that's because I was away for a while and a lot happened. Goodyng launching along with the website's definitely very exciting. So Good Spring is a great time to be a fan of the Rippaverse. Joker's out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.